The first one is Fulvio Dodich. You already saw him as a chair of the morning session. He is the chief executive officer of Ferretti Yatch and another couple of companies of the same group. And please, Fulvio.
Well, thank you, Roberto. First of all, I am very easy to enthuse when I speak, so if I am going too fast, tell me something by saying if you don't slow down, we shoot ourselves or we shoot you, I will understand. However, apart this, I am the CEO of 3 brands, the 3 brands that sometimes are confused with holding company, that's Ferretti SPA, that was a company listed in the stock exchange market in Milan, are really the 3 companies that produce the majority of the activity of the group, because they are producing more or less 50% of the total sales, but more or less 65% of the total marginality EBITDA, that means earnings before interest, taxation, depreciation, amortization of the group. So it's a good place from which you can understand if complexity can be helpful to me, in this case, or it has nothing to do. Well, before speaking about that, and I will arrive to that, sorry, I want to be sure not to get out of time, I needed to explain, I feel it's necessary to explain to you in which way I have approached complexity. Because the history of my life started in a very strange way, because I had a family company and my father asked me to go during summer vacation to work already when I was 12 really. That was not so bad, because I found in a strange position. When I was 17, I was already traveling for the business during summer vacation, and when I was 21, I was already doing training to those people who were salesmen. And this is something that returns in our story, in my tale, really, and I will explain you in which way. At the same time, my father, who was a very technical person, he had been working in a torpedo factory in what is called today Rijeka. At the time in which he was living here, it was Italy, today is Croatia. It was so technical that made me very thirsty about learning and about understanding of technical things and scientific things. And the real problem with my father, thanks God, was not to get explanation about something, about how something was working, but the real problem was how to stop him explaining. That was a completely different approach. He was an explaining machine for technical matter with no switch-off button. But that was good as well when I was young. It causes some discussions later on, but it's part of the normal evolution of father and son. So I was really a child, and I am a good example of evolution, because I started playing with battery and I was tinkering with toys, electrical motors, sometimes trying, when I was stupid enough, to connect them instead to the batteries, to what we had at that time was 125 volts, to see if they were running faster. They did not. But I survived. Only later, when one day David Lane, explaining what Gauss was representing, spoke about a sort of triangle connecting history, group of people, and a function connecting them to evolution, adding a 4th element that is drift, that is a stochastic, casual, random movement, adaptive movement, I understood that I was a survival, because I passed through the sieves of the filters of life, and thanks God, a little bit of luck, I was able to reach the age that I have today. But this part of evolution will come back again. So it happened while I was working. Several things happened. The first thing was that being our company, a small company, we had no information or not certainty about one main point. What we are doing is right, is proper or not. So I started inventing a system to do that I have called invisible interview. Since I was meeting more or less 400 different companies every year, I had decided that whenever I met good company, I was asking them, I was discussing about the business, the reason for which I met them. Then I started with this invisible interview, asking questions about different things to have confirmation if what we were doing was good or if was wrong or if I could improve something. So this was a first very important thing, because this type of interview is still going on in my life, and whenever I meet other company, I go on asking, because they are answering you. And that's good, because it means you are still going on learning and learning. And this is bringing you, in a complex system, to a better position. You understand more. You have a net of communication. So this was one first part who affected my life later on. But then I started also training salesmen, as I was saying to you before. And, well, when you train, you have a new dealer, a new distributor, so you have to go there, explain the product, and train the salesman. And I was starting training, and I had different reaction. The group of old, experienced salesmen, at the end of the day, were saying, well, there is nothing to learn here. And it is rather obvious, because what I was saying to them was the history of their life. I was making shorter the description of what a good salesman can do to reach a certain level. The salesman, again, like in the evolution some way, had passed through the filter sieves, facing problems, finding solution, facing changing environment and changes and beating competition, and every time being adaptive, every time with new emergency. They survived up to success because they were able to have a characteristic that was emergency fitness, really. So no doubt that for them there was nothing to learn, but it was different for the young salesmen. The young salesmen were expecting magic formulas to success. And unfortunately, formulas do not exist. So I tried to change, trying to teach them something more. First of all, I explained it very clearly that the method that I was saying to them was a method that was making shorter, if they would have got the capacity, the skill, obviously, the way to become good salesmen. And that was the easy part. Then I tried, at that time, to explain that the word was not so simple as they were thinking. It means that they were expecting something like, I do that, I get that. If I do that, I will get this result. If this is happening, how should I react? And really, it doesn't work like that. So I set up a sort of model, and I made an example of an elastic net. And I was saying, you see, you have to judge the situation according to the moment in which you are, in the environment that you face, because whichever action you take is like if you have this elastic net, you pick up one point, and what is happening is not that you're moving one point of the net. You move the whole net, and if it is elastic according to the type of movement, you have different reaction. But pay attention, because try to think what is happening if you have a container in one point of the net, and with the small movement, the container is falling down. And it is, and if you have corrosive acid inside, it may fall down and cause damage. So you understand that your business is like that. You have thought to make a small, simple movement, and you have caused a disaster, or maybe you have got a wonderful result. It was a way to explain to them that the system cause-effect was not so working in the business. They needed to think more, in a more enlarged way, and really, in many cases, they had understood to use a different approach whenever they had to face some problems, thinking in a larger way. But this was still the beginning. Really, when I was thinking to the example of the elastic net, in my mind, I was thinking to an elastic net with different type of elasticity in the different meshes, and going in all direction to infinity. But you understand that for the poor salesman was too much. They would never have understood. So I made the example simpler with the flat net. So these two things really went on. And in a second stage, I still was connecting, as you have understood. I was trying to give example of something that at that time was not very clear to me in terms of complex system. Later on, I started a sort of hobby that unfortunately I cannot have any longer because I have not the time, but I started taking pictures of animals, birds. And I was surprised one day after some years I was doing that, because it was almost 6 o'clock in the evening. I was very close to a swamp area, and there were thousands of wading birds flocking into the water and staying there and feeding. And that day I started thinking, how is it possible? How you can get food if there are so many? And I was at the same time reading books, making research, getting information, and I discovered that the wading birds have a special system that make a distinction between them. They feed according to two main characteristics that they have: the length of the leg and the length of the beak. The length of the leg is the characteristics that makes possible to feed in a certain depth of water. The longer the leg, the more they can wade in the water. The length of the beak is making the difference and says how deep they can go in the sand or mud to research food. Some of them are really going only 1 centimeter or running along the border of this swamp area. And I started thinking that it was exactly the same system that in an industry is making possible to small companies to survive, because they are feeding themselves. Feeding obviously makes surviving against competition, and where big companies are probably grabbing the majority of the sales. They are making innovation, where innovation means they are finding a niche where they can find the food. So they are developing the company in such a way, with special characteristics, to get the sales, to get the food for the company, and they can start increasing, growing. Well, in this picture, it came out a friend of mine, Roberto Serra. I was explaining some of these things, really some more, and he told me, oh, yes, that's good, I think we can work on that, but that was all for some months. And one day he came out, I make it shorter, suggesting me to read a book that was Mitchell Wardrop, Complexity. And when I started reading, I was really surprised, because many of the things that I was reading were exactly matching my perceptions, the perception I had before, but until that moment I was in front of, as an Italian writer called Giorgio Bocca was used to write in one of his books, a lot of spots that were never becoming a leopard. Now, after that, I started seeing also the leopard. That was very interesting. So my way of thinking changed a lot, also if I went on making parallel between similar happenings in different worlds. Well, today when we are sending out salesmen scouting in remote area because we are hungry, we want more sales, and we have to discover new area, they come back and report the situation, and we decide where to go, and we go there looking for our food, that means sales. Where is the difference between the behavior of bees, where they get out, find the area of food, come back, report with the dance all the information, and then they go there for food. So as you can see, is not industry is not one single place disconnected from other things. There are so many connections. And I go now to the part that is probably more interesting to you. So with this, let me say, block of information got from that first book. I cannot say if it is the best, the worst, it doesn't matter. It was the first book, and for me was the first book of a group of books that I started reading later, and I'm still reading. My life brought me to Ferretti. Ferretti, when I joined the company, really was only 37 million euro and 12 salesmen, not a big company. I started working to multiply sales and do my job until we have brought the company to the size that we have today, that is 700 million euro turnover, much different from what we had at that time. 65 distributors in 71 countries. So the development was huge. But what is happening when you grow? Since your company is really a complex system, working in an area that can be only the environment where you manufacture, that is a complex system again, working and distributing products in the world that is becoming more a complex system, you understand that it's not so easy. But if you are big, if you are the best in your business as we are today, the big risk is, okay, I stay close in my castle on the top of the hill where nobody can attack me, and I am becoming older. I am becoming older every day, and I do not perceive what is happening there outside. And at this point, we have to see something that was again in Wardrobe's book. The example of that was given, one of the examples for positive feedback and negative feedback. Well, if we big companies stay there because we are so big that nobody is important to us, it means that I have to accept that there is a negative feedback. Small companies are not important. There is nothing good there. They are small company. But it doesn't work like that. Like in the example in the book where he was saying there are small reels here or there, but some of them coalesce in something bigger, in some place that can become revolution, and this was one of the examples of small effects growing. Similarly, in the business industry, it happened that some small people have good idea because they are hungry, they have to survive, they have to pass through the evolution, or they can, some of them do not. So, really, especially in a place like in a market like the boating industry, where you have 4,000, almost 4,000 shipyards with an average of 9 people each, and where there is a consolidation among the big 8 players, you understand that the risk of saying, we do not mind, we do our job, there is nothing good there, is very high. And why you think like that? In the sea of the minor players, somebody has good ideas that you are not evaluated, they will grow, they will become successful, and they will attack you. Fantasy? Well, 4 years ago, a company that didn't exist in Sicily, the worst place where you can imagine to to developing industry, has grown at 100% per year, and they went to the stock exchange market in September last year. They will be successful. The stock market will punish them. We cannot say, but really it is what happened. So you understand that according to, again, the point of view of a classical, point of view, we should not have minded about them. But really, this is a clear example of positive feedback. So this is a message. The message is that there is a chance for everybody. The small can become bigger. They can look at the future with optimism. And on the opposite side, if we were thinking or looking at the situation only on the classical way, negative feedback, they would have never got a chance. That is not matching the real situation of the market. So during this period, I have really changed from my perception from what I was thinking in the beginning, that was, as probably is normally happening when you are a child and then you are 15 years old, from a deterministic point of view, to something completely different, that is complexity point of view. That means I am still using the example of the elastic net going everywhere, making clear to all my staff, and we have a very special system in my 3 companies, not in the group, to work together, that they have to pay a lot of attention thinking to reaction. And I am also trying to teach them that whenever we are fixing goals for the future, goals are goals, but we can also obviously decide which is the main path that we have to follow to reach successfully the goal, but we must be continuously adaptive. We cannot decide month by month what is happening, predict month by month what is happening, because we will never be successful doing that. So sailing this turbulence of a complex system, we have to fix the goal and every day be adaptive, facing emergency, if we want to reach the goal. And it could also happen that for major events, unforecastable today, we are unable to reach the goal. I am almost done, 1 minute. So, I have a reputation. The holding company always says to me that we must have some prudence in our business plan and budget, because it is 4 years I am always exceeding a little bit the result. For a small share for a small portion they are right, there are some prudence, but not so many. The reality is that until we have no major happenings that can affect deeply the business, really the result, the secret some way to do that is to reach the goal is what I've explained to you today. Every week, every day, we go to the office thinking that the world is changed during the night, and we must be adaptive. And this is what we are doing, and we are continuously rechecking, and we are sailing. We are doing both. Sailing is a proper word. We are sailing in this way, changing the main route, but looking always to reach the main goal. This is the secret. I don't think that there is no other way. There are so many other things that I could have told you, but I want really to respect the time. What is important is that the fact of being aware of being in a complex world, and the company is a complex system, and also the human being, I completely agreed with the presentation before, is already a complex system, is helping the daily business very much to reach what you want. And there is no certainty that you can do that, because we cannot predict what kind of big emergency we will have in the future. We can only pay attention and be adaptive. That's it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you Fulvio, also for your stressing the need for adaptation, which I think is a very key point. I should also add that Fulvio has written one of the chapters of the book, so some of the things which he didn't succeed in saying, perhaps you find in writing. So I thank him also for his contribution to the book. Questions? No, I don't think so. I think somebody will bring you the microphone.
Okay. I really appreciated your talk because I can see the passion for science of complexity, and I think that through passion a human being can reach very high results. But my question is this: does the science of complexity affect your company only in a change of perspective, of mentality of your employee, or do you change some practices? Do you change, for example, your organizational form, your organizational structure, or something like that? I know that if the answer is positive, there is no time for explaining, but at least will be sufficient for me. Thank you.
Thanks to you. No, really no. We cannot change because the major people working in the company do not understand they are moving in a complex system, especially the holding company. So what I am teaching the people are with us is also complexity, because we made a real and proper presentation about complexity to the team that is working with me, that is a rather larger team, to try to bring them to understand what complexity means. This is what we did. But really, at the end of the story, we remain with something like the salesman, the old successful salesman. It means that what is happening is that the majority of the people in the group know that they are successful, know that they have done the proper good things, but they do not understand exactly that they have done it in a random way. The difference is between doing like that and find yourself successful, also if you are working for that, and having a clear understanding of what you are doing. That is what I am trying to teach to my people. Sometimes without declaring, it's important they understand the system, because if you want to explain too much about complexity since the beginning, they do not believe, because in some cases they are not prepared to understand. Step by step.
Okay, other questions? Well, we thank Fulvio
Thank you
Dodich
very
again.
much.